The Jets kicked off the annual firing cycle with head coach Robert Saleh being shown the door. A tough start to the old Brick era against the Bills this week, but I know Brick, and he will have the Jets back fighting again, and some reinforcements on the way. On the other side of that firing, of course, comes hiring. Not now, but it'll be here before you know it. It will happen both on the coaching side and perhaps on the front office side as well. And you all know there is only one person you can trust when it comes to the names to watch. That is Neil Stratton. That and more today on Scouting the League. Everyone, and welcome to Scouting the League. Yes, I am back, and likely for the last time from Atlanta. I appreciate Neil taking over for me last week in his conversation with Rick Saratella. A fascinating journey for Rick through the years to where he is now, and some thoughts that maybe you agreed with, maybe you disagreed with, or just wanted some more information. Head over to Twitter, hit us up. As always, Neil Stratton is at Inside the League, where he is mapping out scouting areas, tracking front office moves, or keeping up with the agent world. Neil is a must follow and a must subscribe to that Friday wrap. Make sure you are not signed up for that already. You are. I am Rodrik David at Right Step ADB is where you can find me. I'm probably writing reports, talking to players about that next right step, or even in the process of moving to a new spot. Whatever I'm doing, football is probably somewhere on my mind. Before we jump in today, make sure you head over, like, subscribe, share this podcast or video wherever you are listening or watching. Give us a 5-star review. Most importantly, share this with a friend. Check out the other shows from our new home over on fansfirstsports.com. If you so choose, you can find the video version of all our pods over on YouTube. Neil, great work last week with Rick. I missed a week on the injured list, and you stepped up to do the work of two men seamlessly. Thank you for that.
Just trying to keep up, man. Just trying to pull my weight here and make sure that I'm not replaced by next week. I mean, this is, as I've always said, this is your podcast, so I serve
Well,
at your discretion, and I'm glad to be here.
You made it your podcast last week and made me. People didn't even remember me. That's why I got to make sure I remind everybody, that I am out here somewhere. But man, it was a huge slate of games this weekend. Obviously, some top 10 matchups, some big games. Again, you have Alabama barely surviving, winning over South Carolina, and somewhat of a wild finish. You've got Texas looking clearly like the number one team in the country, just rolling OU in the Red River rivalry. Oregon edges Ohio State. We could talk about the last 2 minutes of that game, really the last two plays of that game, 12 men. What should it mean? Again, you think back to a Patriots-Ravens game a couple years ago in the playoffs, and again, it always, it takes a situation like that to get the rules made maybe the way they should be. But again, you've got Ohio State barely dropping in the polls is probably appropriate. You've got Tennessee holding on versus Florida. Again, another team that had a disappointment. Penn State and LSU both coming back versus USC and Ole Miss. You've got Kansas State, who, again, as they always do, finds a way to win over, again, a CU team that is never out of the headlines. You've got the best player in the country in Ashton Jeanty continuing to do special things every week. We've got a Cam Rising situation, again, looking at an 8th year in college football. Is it what is wrong with college football sport and college sports right now? Again, 8 years in college, again, up for debate. We could probably spend a half an episode talking about any one of these items. What really jumped out, or what are you taking away from this weekend's really big slate of games?
Well, I know that we still call it the Red River Shootout here in Texas. We stay away from rivalry and all those PC terms. But I think the thing that jumps out to me, number one, is Texas is a very impressive team, and they've really kind of made that a pretty one-sided rivalry. Notwithstanding the fact that they haven't, been undefeated there per se, but I mean, wow, decisive victory there, obviously. Alabama, it's easy to say now, but I wasn't shocked when they lost to Vandy. I'm a Diego Pavia believer, and I think he's a little underrated. Now, is he an NFL quarterback? I don't know about that, but as far as college, man, he's a really exciting player. And so I wasn't shocked. But then to see him come out flat against South Carolina as well, and maybe I'm not giving the Gamecocks their due, but boy, they barely survived, as you alluded to, and I thought that was surprising. I was very surprised that LSU beat Ole Miss because I have no confidence whatsoever in LSU's defense, and that's been a recurring theme. For the amount of talent that they send to the NFL, it's shocking that they can never stop anybody, and they can't. And that's one thing that's fun about watching LSU. It's a shootout almost every week. And then Dan Lanning, I guess you got to give him his credit for finding a way, even skirting the rules, shall we say, to pull out an incredibly big win over, in my estimation, maybe the number 2 team when it's all said and done at the end of the season. So what another great weekend of college football. Has been an incredible season, and I think we are seeing the leveling effect of NIL and the portal. There just are not. I didn't expect anyone to survive the season undefeated. I still don't think anyone will. Who's still out there? Is Texas the only undefeated team? I should look.
No,
Right.
Texas. There's another one, maybe in the 4 or 5 region. I'm trying to. Ohio State is in front of Penn State. Penn State's still
It's
undefeated, I
undefeated.
believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, it's the way the schedule holds. Texas, again, you're playing the SEC, so good luck going undefeated. But
Right.
again, you're gonna have matchups and chances for all these teams. So you got a couple undefeated. I think you're legit teams if you're talking undefeated who can be number one. Again, Penn State. Again, you want to start with a quarterback. Again, you start with the quarterbacks for all these teams. Again, they got a good one in Drew Aller.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they could, if they continue to take the steps, they've looked a little bit more impressive every week. From what I've seen, a little more confident, a little more, complete. And again, that's a good USC team.
It is.
And found a way to come back and win that one. So that Penn State's entry again. Penn State, LSU. Again, you've got quarterbacks. As with all of these teams, you again start with quarterback. We talk about it. All these quarterbacks. Alabama again. Who is Jalen Milroe? Again, the more I see him, the more I think of Lamar Jackson. Again, you don't ask him to win with his arm. He's unbelievable with his legs, but he can win with his arm.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's going to be a little bit inconsistent. He's going to miss some throws. Again, you saw that, some of it. But again, you've got Quinn Ewers returning. Again, absolutely rolling. You've got Dylan Gabriel, Oregon quarterback, who is a good college quarterback, really good college quarterback perhaps. You've got a young kid in Tennessee going to be inconsistent. I think that shows up. Again, you start thinking about USC first-year starter. But again, Penn State, LSU, quarterbacks that are rising up the boards, kind of prototypical NFL quarterbacks. And again, on the other side of that, LSU, Jackson Dart, man, he was kind of maybe making the argument for number 1 quarterback in this class, and now he's kind of fallen off a little bit and getting outdueled in an offense that, again, everybody expected him to put up huge numbers.
Not only that, Rodrik, I mean, here's a hot take. Is Texas starting the best quarterback on the team right now? I mean, I'm a big fan of Quinn Ewers, and I think he's probably a 1. But boy, they didn't lose anything when Eli came in, and
How
obviously,
about Arch? If they bring Eli back, that'd
well,
be
Arch,
really impressive.
I lose track of my Mannings. But yeah, I mean, they didn't lose anything when Arch came in, and he's really pretty much met the hype so far. And wow, I mean, I think everyone kind of knew this season was not supposed to be when you were supposed to be in the NFL at this point, and that didn't happen. He's not been totally durable, and which has given Arch some opportunities. It's just really fascinating to follow all that stuff. I tell you what, the one thing about it is I would feel really good if Ewers does get hurt. Nothing, we're not trying to put any voodoo on him, but boy, having a backup situation like that is a real luxury when it comes to modern FBS football, especially at the P4 level.
Yeah, and I look at it too. Obviously, we know who Arch is. Arch is extremely talented. He's probably starting at 99% of the other schools in the country. But I also give huge credit to Sark and that offensive staff.
Yeah.
I mean, their offensive line, again, you think about how Michigan won it last year, that a lot of similarities to what Texas is doing. They bring back, I think, 4 or 5 starters on that offensive line. Again, they could be looking at 5 guys drafted from that offensive line. So again, you put a good quarterback behind a really good, sometimes dominant offensive line. Again, they just run running backs through. They're going to have talent on the outside. Again, Texas is Texas. Texas is finally back to Texas.
Yeah,
And
it is.
again, it doesn't matter Arch, Quinn. Again, they're going to have somebody else in the running. If they're not a top 5 quarterback, team getting whatever recruit in the country they want, it's huge. So again, that's they're clearly number one, which is good. And again, that quarterback to another quarterback. Again, Cam Rising gets hurt again this year after he starts the year late. I don't want to beat up Cam. Use whatever eligibility you can. 8 years, though, Neil. 8 years in the NCAA. Is this what people are most fed up with? Again, forget all the rest of the NCAA stuff. 8 years trying to compete 4 years. Is this one of those things that, again, what really causes people to have issues with the NCAA?
I mean, I think so, but it's part of the deal, and I think ultimately this comes back to that COVID year. I mean, that's the thing that frustrates scouts the most, and I think to some degree frustrates fans, is that how that's been kind of beaten up and used and really abused, quite frankly. And I think this is the last year of those. I think after the season, they wash out. No one will be happier, I think, than people on the NFL side, scouts, coaches, what have you, because it's just so hard to even know who's still eligible and to kind of fight all those battles. But yeah, I mean, Rising is a situation where here's a guy that I think he recognizes that the NFL is probably not in the cards for him, especially given the fact that he'd be 28 when he's drafted, which is absurd. But
Brandon Weeden would tell you otherwise.
Well, there've been the Chris Winkies out there, the guys that kind of played baseball first, but for the most part, for guys that just played football, wow. But at the same time, I guess again he's taking advantage of the situation. I'm sure in Salt Lake City they're really happy he's still there and love to have him come back and have stability at that position more so than what you see with a lot of NFL teams. It's certainly a frustration when it comes to college football. It's not what we're used to, but it is what it is in the modern era. And so I guess we just kind of got to live with it.
Yeah, well, modern era, getting used to what you're not used to. I mean, that is the name of the game for college football right now, all across the country. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go throwback again, Ashton Jeanty, best player in college football, should be the Heisman front runner. People would disagree with me, maybe agree with me. It's not a quarterback's award. It's the best player in college football. Clearly, he has been. I can't stand, and I refute. If I'm watching film on my computer, I'm not watching the Smurf turf. I can't stand colored turf. Again, it is Eastern Washington, not watching it. Again, who is it? Central Arkansas with their purple turf, Eastern Michigan with their gray turf. I want green grass. I want green turf. It's awful to watch on, but Ashton, unbelievable. Sounds like he's a great kid as well, which again makes him easy to root for. Again, I don't think he's going to be a Bijan Robinson top 10 pick, but again, he's going to be absolutely. I think that in those teens when come draft time, again, he's going to be a fun, easy player to root for wherever he ends up.
Okay, so you're going on record as Ashton Jeanty's top half of the first round. Is that where we are right now, Roger?
I mean, I said teen, so I'm going 11 to 19.
Okay.
11 to 19, somewhere in there. He will be a top 20 pick. I just don't think the value is not there for running backs in the top 10. Barring a situation, again, you would say a good team with the quarterback that goes down. Again, like some of these teams where Atlanta was in a quick rebuild because that was the only spot they didn't have. You fill the need with Kirk Cousins, where Bijan did make sense. But again, you go with 11 to 19. You got me on the record right now for Ashton Jeanty right there.
Hey, we take strong stands here at the Scouting the League podcast. We don't shrink from controversy, I guess, in that regard anyway.
Okay. Yeah, if anybody wants to keep the receipts, you got them.
There you go. Yep. All right. Yeah, Jeanty is legit, obviously. He's one of many. Lots of exciting offensive talent out there. I think there's probably as much offensive talent in the league as there in college football at the upper reaches as there ever has been. And you look at the Jeremiah Smiths and those guys like that are doing amazing things as true freshmen.
Yeah.
Wow, what a time to be alive when it comes to college football.
Yeah, seeing the dollar signs in their future. So it's all going to be good for them. So, Neil, let's get back to the NFL. The Jets. The Jets are doing what the Jets do. Owner Woody Johnson, regardless of what you think about him, owners are often unpopular people when you're losing. And when you're winning, you really don't pay much attention to them. So he chooses, go in, allegedly surprises everybody, makes a change at the head coaching position. Allegedly, Aaron Rodgers has no idea, blindsided by it. I don't think that's maybe the case, whether Rodgers lobbied for it or pushed the right buttons behind the scenes. Again, whatever, speculation. Jeff Ulbrich is now the interim head coach. This is a team, the Jets made changes to their front office. Not a ton. You got Jody on top, but again, make a change in a well-respected Rex Hogan underneath. Again, you don't want to call it dysfunctional. I don't think they're there yet. This is not the Jets of maybe 7 to 8 years ago, but it's an interesting spot. They make the trade for Davante Adams, it sounds like, going to get that finalized today. It sounds like Hassan Reddick, now that he's with Drew Rosenhaus, is no longer going to be there. So you've got now personnel changes throughout this year. We're 6-7 weeks in, and they are still not far out of a wild card spot in the AFC. I mean, this year sputters along. They end up missing the playoffs, but have a solid record. What are you expecting with this team in terms of front office? Joe Douglas is safe this year, isn't he?
I think he is. Based on what I have heard and who I've talked to, he does seem to be safe, which tells me that. But based on making a change this early and just the head coach, that tells me that Robert Wood Johnson still believes in his team and still has high expectations. They've made all the right moves. They don't trade for Davante Adams if they don't think that this season isn't lost yet. And I think that there is an expectation that Jeff Ulbrich can come in there and provide answers where maybe Saleh wasn't able to. Changing the offensive play caller is a big change, obviously, and Rodgers signing off on that is a big deal as well. So, notwithstanding last night's results, I still think that there's season left for the Jets, and I still think that they're thinking there's season left. The defense is there. They've got the running game. Is Rodgers the same guy he was 10 years ago? No, but neither am I. But probably he still has enough to get him there. Now especially in a year when the Dolphins are really struggling, and there's opportunity there. So I think I don't hate the move. I mean no disrespect to Saleh. I think in many ways he was trapped, but I think that there's an opportunity for Ulbrich, and I haven't looked at the schedule and what's ahead, but in a division that could be in play, I think there's still some opportunities there, and I don't think it's necessarily a panic move, even though we got they made a change before we could even post our annual list of head coaches with agents. So in my book, that's kind of early, but still, we'll see. Maybe they'll get the results they need, and having Davante Adams around certainly isn't going to hurt.
Yeah, certainly. Again, it'll be interesting. Davante Adams, you're expecting Hassan Reddick to be elsewhere. Again, there's no sign that says he's going to be back. But again, there's always situations where guys end up back that surprise you. So again, I don't think the Jets will be done. There's going to be moves to be made. Joe Douglas, highly respected.
Highly respected.
He was a guy that, again, a lot of people, all right, New York Jets problem. So you think about other teams across the league. Again, the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy does not look like he is safe in Dallas, which stay more on the coaching side there, because obviously your GM is your owner to a certain degree. Again, you're going to get the Bill Belichick rumors there, of course. You've got the Browns in their situation, which, again, they are doubling, tripling. I think this is maybe the fourth week where they're quadrupling down on Deshaun Watson, gives them the best chance to win, which is hard to watch a game and believe that, again, because, again, it was not that long ago where, regardless of Jameis Winston and his inconsistency, I mean, he's won some games and he's at least going to put up some numbers. I believe the Browns are the only team in the NFL that has not yet scored 20 points in a game, which, again, Jameis Winston is going to give you 20 points. He may turn the ball over 4 times on the way, but he's going to get you 20 points. So, again, and then a team you mentioned in the Dolphins. The Tua situation, again, how much does the owner put that on Chris Greer? How much does he put it on Mike McDaniel? Again, a situation where it seems like what's could go wrong for them maybe the last year and a half kind of has.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you think they're safe, and then you've got the Jaguars. Again, a situation where it is ugly. You've got your franchise quarterback, but again, really look like they are letting it down everywhere else. And I'm going to throw the Rams out there just because you've got an old quarterback, you've got a head coach that has flirted with leaving in the media,
Mm-hmm.
and Les Snead, who has been there a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and an ownership group that again may just want to maybe not spend too much or do. Again, who knows? So again, we're not going to speculate on any of the rest of those. But again, we go back to Joe Douglas. We think he's safe. So from a trait standpoint, you're going to have your list of guys, assistant GMs, directors of pro personnel, directors of college personnel, national scouts, people that are, when it comes time to interview, whether it's that GM, assistant GM, those high level positions, they're going to be sitting in the room. Let's talk about traits. Scouts love traits. That's what scouts are paid to watch, pick up on. So what traits should owners be looking for? And maybe if you want to start to throw out some names, who are some names that are going to have these traits come, when we get to December and it really starts to heat up?
Let's start by talking about what owners are looking for rather than what they should be looking for. I think there are certain things that have been pretty evident in the last few hiring cycles. Let's start with the winning program. 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, it was who's next for the Patriots. We got, let's see, I've got Quinn, Caserio, Robinson, Austin Fort, Ziegler, Wolf, and Light, all former Patriots staffers who are in GM seats or have been in GM seats. And so obviously that speaks for itself. More recently, the Niners, Adolfo-Mensa, Mayu, Peters, Balke, all now GMs or recently GMs that have that stamp of the Niners on them right now, and a great program. We've also seen hires from the Ravens and the Packers and other programs that have proven success. The bottom line is it's less likely these days to hire from within, especially because these positions are so visible and you're kind of quasi the face of the franchise. And certainly if you have a questionable QB or if your head coach is on thin ice. So I think that's one big characteristic of it. I think another one is diversified skill set. We've seen that at ITL. There have been a few scouts that have kind of reached out and said, "Hey, I want to learn more about the cap. I want to learn more about the CBA." One newer GM actually kind of worked with us on that side as well. And so I think there's a recognition, especially among the executives on the higher level that are maybe the next ones up, that, hey, I've got to at least have some kind of grasp of how the cap works, how decisions are made, what I'm looking at if I sign a player to X contract, whatever. And I think you're also seeing more analytics guys. I mean, Kwesi in Minnesota, I think, doesn't get there if he doesn't have that lengthy background in analytics. And I think that's something teams are looking for, especially new guard owners who are used to using that in their own. That's kind of how they got to where they're able to buy the team, is looking at the numbers and trying to find secrets in there that maybe others don't identify. And so I think it's more than just a guy who is ready to come in there and make the picks, a guy that spent 20 years on the road. It's much more of a guy that knows a little bit more about how the modern decisions are made. I think this is going to sound weird, but I think youth and appearance are very important. When I was preparing for this podcast, I only found about 10, I think, GMs who are not 50 years old. That are older than 50.
Yeah.
And a couple of them are barely over 50. And then you've got some that are right around 40, and I think and a couple that are younger than 40. And that's unheard of as recently as 10 to 15 years ago. But I think that's really important as the NFL becomes a much more visible game, as the people that are making the decisions are demanded to be in front of the media more often. Listen, looks as well. I mean, I don't think any of the 32 GMs are overweight, or if so, they're not really overweight. I know that sounds crazy, but again, owners want to win the press conference. And part of that is having a guy who looks good and is presentable and doesn't look like John Madden out there. So I think those are important traits, and that sounds crazy, but it's true. And then also, the media, like it or not, is part of the game now, and you've got to have good representation that can present you in the best light, can tamp down the negatives when necessary, and can make sure you're seen as the next hot guy. Because very often owners respond to that. Search firms respond to that. Search firms are doing a lot of the work of hiring these days. And so I think those are four traits that you see in modern hires today, whether or not they're the right ones or not. That's the fact is that decisions are being made based on these qualities and these, and so you've got to make sure you're on the right side of all those things. I think if you want to be upwardly mobile in the game when it comes to the front office.
Yeah, no, you hit on a couple things there, and I think about the first one you hit on was that Patriots model, and again, the number of guys that came through there, and you think about you think about Patriots, you think about Belichick, and you think about how he was with the media, and then you take that the next step, and I think about some of the unsuccessful GMs and head coaches that came out of there. They weren't Bill, but they were prickly. And again, to your point about the media, I think about Jason Light has been very good with the media, and I think he's grown over the years. He's kind of embraced who he was, which is again, that's what you have to do. You have to be yourself. Where guys like Bob Quinn, again, he never felt natural sitting up in front. Like you didn't ever leave a press conference, I think, feeling a certain way. It was
Yeah.
literally if you got the transcript and read it, I mean, walk home and kind of ho hum about it. And again, you think about Elliott is a polished. Again, you think about that New England, spot right now, polished. Again, he's not. He doesn't have the kind of the boisterous personality maybe an Adam Peters or John Lynch do. But again, you can tell he is used to it, that he's been trained on it, that he's focused on it, which is again the optics, if you want to call it optics. Again, the media, you got to have the media at least not against you. They don't have to be on your side. You don't have to be buddy buddy, but they can't be against you. And again, you think about some of the funnier press. Adam Gase never had a chance in New York. Again, think about his early press conference and the crazy eyes. And again, whatever situation that arises as a result of that. And again, it was to me it was the pendulum swinging all the way other way with Mike Mayock in Las Vegas, where he was so in the media that he couldn't. There was not a line for him. He was still part of the media trying to do a GM job, and again, regardless of the other decisions he made, it always felt like there was just a little bit too much there. So the optic and the again accessibility, the success. Again, you can define success a lot of different ways. Your success as a GM with the media is different today and will be different in the next 5 years than it was even 5 to 7 years ago. Would you agree with that?
Of course. Now, and I'm going to say in Mayock's defense, I don't think he ever really got a chance to be Mike Mayock. He was always John Gruden's hire. So I think I think Gruden had the iron in that front office at all times. And I don't know that it was ever Mayock making the picks or being the traditional GM that you think of. And we're seeing that more and more often. When McDermott went into Buffalo, he made a great choice in Brandon Beane. Wow, when Gruden went in, and again, this is nothing on Mike Mayock, but he didn't go out and get a guy that was going to test him, was going to push him, was going to all those things. This is Mayock's first chance to be a GM. I think he was cognizant of that the whole time. So if you're going to bring in a guy as a head coach and be the de facto leader of the franchise, you better make sure that you choose wisely when it comes to GMs and not just choose a guy that you're comfortable with and that he's not going to ever be able to challenge you because you're such a big personality and all those kind of things. And I think that's a mistake that some teams have made. More and more as the head coach is a guy on the sideline who's making all the money, I can see why owners want to kind of give them more of the power, but it's a deadly dance, I think, because at some point someone's going to need to tell that guy your time has come and gone and it's time to move on. And now we got to hire somebody else.
Yeah. One other element, one other trait that I want to hit on, and this becomes a tough one to go back and forth on for me, because I think about when John Lynch was hired as the GM, and I think about the number of scouts that I saw come up and get a bunch of opportunities earlier, former players. I've said it on here before. I am a short, slow, stiff, white Division III corner that never had a shot in the NFL, but I would always put my work ethic, my football training, my football IQ up against anybody. But I know for a fact I lost opportunities to people because they had NFL player for even a training camp next to their name. Again, if they get an opportunity, I wish they, all the success. I hope they work hard. I hope they do the right things. Plenty that do, plenty that don't. I think about Dan Morgan being hired in Carolina this year. Again, a guy that I was with on the road and, know at least enough to know that, again, some guys are deserving of chances. John Lynch being one of those that has absolutely taken, every advantage of opportunity. You see it with head coaches. Antonio Pierce, obviously. You think about Dan Campbell up in Detroit. More and more DeMeco Ryans. Again, that former NFL player. Is that becoming kind of the next thing where if you have that notch next to you on either scouting or coaching side, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt over somebody else?
You're talking about a cultural thing now, Rodrik. I mean, I hate to get beyond the football aspect of it, but we may have a president who's basically a game show host. We're
Which side are you talking? Because that could probably go either way here at this point.
Neither one of them have a lot of experience when it comes to, I don't know. Anyway, let's not go down that road. The point is, I think that the show and entertainment are part of the game more so than they used to be. And I think what fans respond to is bigger than what it used to be. And I don't think that's fair, but I think it's true. And that's why you're seeing so many people basically go from the field to the front office, from the field to the sideline. It is what it is. As a guy who believes in dues paying, I'm right there with you. But ownership, again, I think obviously they get to make the decisions. They're the one paying all the money. And as coaches and GMs become more disposable and get less of a window of success, I think to some degree they're looking for someone who can pop and really come in and be a magical person. And if they're not, get on down the road, we'll find somebody else. And maybe that's one more reason why they don't feel like they've got to get the sexy one rather than the one that has been the tortoise. The tortoise rather than they want the hare rather than the tortoise is maybe a good way to put it. And I disagree with it, but that's where we are right now. But hopefully, again, and I don't want to go back to what ITL does as much, but in our awards that we present at the Combine every year at our Combine seminar, the feedback I'm getting from scouts is, listen, this is an opportunity from someone outside the building to say that some scouts are doing it right. And I think that a lot of times, especially in front offices, they don't do as good a job of grading their scouts, and they don't recognize the good job that their own evaluators are doing, which they should know everything about them. But more often than not, until they see that someone else is giving them some kind of a credit or awareness or whatever, they don't recognize that. And so I'm hopeful that as we continue down the road and we keep handing out those plaques and giving recognition to some of the right people, there'll be more opportunities and a bigger kind of range of people rather than just the same ones that we hear virtually every year getting interviews and that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's, again, what our annual numbers, ITL's annual numbers, we're looking at 4 new GM openings, 5 new GM openings. What are you,
coming
the numbers,
up this year,
the averages tell you what? Yes.
That's right around. I mean, you're looking at, it's 5 to 7 is your high low more or less most off seasons. Whether or not it's still rather early in the season to be starting to make predictions about that kind of thing, but it looks like that's kind of where we are. There are going to be some surprise terminations as well as some surprise hires, and so it's very unpredictable. I don't like to go out and start naming names and who's on the hot seat because it's too much like the other podcasts. But yeah, and we'll analyze those once the openings come up and the people that are getting the interviews and all those kind of things. There's certainly a lot of people out there that are worthy of them, and I've got some outside the box candidates for you if you want me to throw some names at you.
Who are they? Again, who are the names? Again, if now's the time to get familiar with them, and again track them and then go back before the media does their thing and takes them and runs. Who are some names that, again, out of the box, names you like, names that are well respected, names that should be brought up more?
Well, let's start with Tariq Ahmad. He's the co-DPP in San Francisco. Just got that title last year. Not only has he won 2 Bard Awards, we've only offered it 3 years, but consistently the feedback I get is this guy is ready. He's very good. He's knowledgeable. He knows the pro side as well as the college side, although his background's on the college side. Um, he presents well, and he's off that Niners tree, and I think that means a lot. And I don't know that he's interviewed for a GM spot yet, but I think he's ready to, and I think won't be long before he is. Ian Cunningham, I am always bragging about how I brought him in to Honolulu in 2008 for the Hula Bowl, and I'm still kind of excited about that, kind of cool. But I think he's a guy that's ready as well. He's got that Eagles stamp of approval. He's got the Ravens stamp of approval. He's done things the right way. I think he's ready, and it looks like maybe the Bears have got it turned around. If they continue on this trajectory, I think that he will be a very popular candidate in the offseason. Jim Lifford, a guy that is, as popular as you'll find in NFL scouting circles and executive circles. Another guy who's kind of got that Patriots background, but boy, did they ever get the first 2 picks right last year and change and although I don't know how much influence Jim had on the head coaching hire, boy, the 2 draft picks and a coaching hire, and they went from nowhere to somewhere fast. And that's what you're looking for. That's what I think every owner is looking for. And so I think James could be a really attractive name this offseason. A guy that nobody ever talks about it, but if you're looking for a pedigree and you're looking for a guy who's paid his dues, he's been on the road, Mike Martin with the Lions. The Lions are as impressive a front office and an operation as there is out there right now. And, we handed them the best draft award last year. I think they earned it. They did really great on draft day. Mike is Vanderbilt grown and has been with a lot of franchises that have had success. He's seen it done a lot of different ways, and they're doing great in Detroit. I think he deserves a look. And then Jeff Ireland is a guy that I've been a fan of for a long time. I don't think anyone that's on this podcast can be surprised that I bring him up. They've had a few misses on the draft the last few years, but I think they have, at least if you look at the first few rounds, they've done a lot better. The last 2 years, let's tell the truth. Sean Payton was making a lot of those decisions prior to his exit from New Orleans, and he's got a big name and a big shadow and all those kind of things. And I think now that they're able to make purely scouting-based moves and decisions, I think they're getting things right more often. And so I think Jeff is a guy that his critics are pretty loud and about how things went in Miami, but I still think that he's done a lot of good things, and I think he's ready for another opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good list. Again, every one of those names, again, that whether I know them personally, you hear things, you hear about them. Again, every one of those guys, good reputation, and it starts with that. Again, hopefully, if you all people from a scouting background, primarily, again, as a scout, that I like to hear that. Again, it's always that grain of salt when you get people from the analytics world. That again, it's a different path, not a wrong path. It can be a good path, and they can be great people and end up being great GMs. But again, it's just when you're on the road with guys, you root for them, and it's always the scouts battle that they have within themselves. Players you fall in love with and have to root for at least 2 times against every year. But if they go to your rival or division opponent, or again, you're going to see them, you want them to crush it when it doesn't affect you. You want guys to do well. But again, if they're playing you, all right, don't play this week. And again, it becomes the same type of thing. I wish for it's for me personally, I struggle because I have Mike Ross, Tumbo in Atlanta, and a bunch of road scouts, Joel Collier, all these guys that I grew up with. I want them to have massive success, but also the situation I was fired in, I want the Falcons to have no success. Like how do you rectify that? Being able to see Raheem on the road and being like, Ra, great job, you won, but also I hate the Falcons with undying passion. So it all comes back to that world where you hope good people, ultimately you hope good people have good things happen to them. So it's going to be a good cycle, and I'm looking forward to your 5 names being the first 5 names that are requested for interviews out there, because that's the way it works. They go to the ITL list first, right?
I don't know about that, but maybe. I will say, Roderick, I always appreciate your willingness to not pull punches, man, and to put it all out there, buddy. And that's hopefully that our listeners appreciate that as well. You don't get that on every podcast. One thing I do want to say, I don't know who's doing analytics right, and I would challenge anyone to say who is. I ask teams, and I'm asking scouts, I'm asking analytics people all the time, who are the ones that you model yourself after? We're still in the formative stages of all this, and I don't see. I mean, there are a few that seem to have a good reputation, but there's no template for this yet, and we're considering adding some kind of a analytics award to ITL, and it's going to be peer voted on, so it's got nothing to do with me anyway. But I don't know that anyone can say, okay, this is how you do it. This is who we're hiring. I mean, there are certainly some people that are starting to get some mobility and seem to be getting paid a little bit more and all those kind of things. And I recognize scouting is a very uncertain science as well. But despite the fact that analytics is on the tip of everyone's tongue, there's no one that says, okay, these guys are the next wave of GMs or whatever you want to call it. These are the guys that are really cracking the code in a way that nobody else recognizes. And until that happens, I don't know how you say, okay, this is where we need to go from an analytics standpoint. This is what we need to be doing. This is who we need to be hiring. I don't have those answers. And I don't know, and I would defy anyone to say that they do. I would love for them to come on this podcast and talk about it if they do, because I need to know. And I think a lot of people would like to know. And maybe the reason no one is really pointing at those people is because they haven't achieved representation with the right agencies, and therefore they're not getting in front of the media, no one's telling their story and all those kind of things. And maybe that'll just happen more in time. Typically, you don't have representation until you get to that director level as a scout, and maybe that's kind of where we've got to see analytics people go as well. But it's just, you're really you just don't have the answers you need. You're kind of struggling looking for that kind of thing. And maybe, again, we're still early enough in the game to where maybe that's going to come. But where we are right now, I don't see who is the face of analytic success. I have no idea. And I watch this pretty closely. I know you do too, Roderick, as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about some of those elements that make for who owners are hiring. I think about the last hiring cycle I was a part of with the Falcons, and some of what things they talked about, some of the things that were brought up that, again, hindsight is 2020, whether it's analytics, whether it's scouting. That's one of the great, problems that if you become a head coach, usually Dan Campbell might be the exception here. It's because you're an unbelievable play caller on offense, or you had a really awesome defense.
Mm-hmm.
When you step up into that head coaching role, the plate gets a whole lot more full. It's the exact same thing for a GM. You may be an unbelievable evaluator on the pro side. You may have an unbelievable track record of drafting and college road scouting. You may, again, come from a successful, a really good cap situation. But again, you step up into that GM role, again, you've got a whole lot more on your plate. So you think about some of those, if you want to call them the old school CEO traits. You better be, in the NFL, a leader of men, primarily, leader of people, a leader that people can look to, trust, honest, integrity, all those things. You better be able to delegate. You better be able to find the right people to put underneath you that you can trust and that are going to get the job done. That is a really, really hard skill to, find, maybe to quantify, maybe to figure out. Again, you think about, pressure decisions. Again, you get a call half hour, you're working right up till a trade deadline. You're working under the clock on a draft. And you think about some of those, again, what I would think of as old school, older CEO, leader qualities. And again, hopefully those are the traits again. And when I think about it, the traits that you want in your leaders, your captains, your quarterbacks, your head coaches, your GMs, that's what you want. If you start with those, again, if it's man, he's the hardest working guy in the building. Well, I hope so. That should be a prerequisite. That should be standard, not the number one thing that comes to mind. Well, he's really, really smart. Good. I hope he's smart. He better not be the smartest in the room because again, he better surround himself with a bunch of people that are smarter than. Again, you think about some of those things, and again, you see it all the time with head coaches. Mostly, you step into that head coaching role, and you're forced to maybe give up the play calling duties that got you where you were. So again, it becomes an incredibly difficult thing to manage for people out there, and again for these GMs. Again, they're not going to be listening to us. Hopefully they are. Hopefully maybe they grab something from this. But again, if you're doing the right things, you're doing the right things, and the right opportunities will come. So let's transition. You got something first, Neil?
Well, I
Look
want
like
to
you're ready to go.
myself, Roderick, because we've talked about GM level for a lot of this episode, and I love to do that. But I want to get down, I think, more close to the road. One of the things we've been doing in the Friday Wrap the last few weeks is talking to scouts about their visits and, what are they seeing, who's doing it well, who's not doing it so well. They're very candid, and it's funny when I reach out to some of these scouts, they can't wait to tell me about some of the bad guys and some of the bad schools and all those kind of
There's some bad ones.
When you were on the road, Roderick, what were you looking for? What was it fair to expect from a school? And what were some of the things that schools did that really pissed you off and, that frankly cost their players opportunities?
Yeah, I mean and you go back and I'll try not to name the schools. I may name them anyway. You want to know what you're getting into. First of all, I mean, if you know what's again, whether you're closed or open, just let us know. That always used to be one of the most frustrating things. Is most pro liaisons would want to be open. They want to be tight with scouts. Some of them want to get into scouting, so they would try to set their restrictions, their rules for coming in to be very fairly open. But then you get there, and again, head coach said we got to limit you to this, and it's like that's changing everything. I would not have come today. I would have come a different time. I would have done this differently. It just messes up your whole routine and whole schedule. And when you've mapped out essentially a 3-month block of time down to the day, it becomes really difficult to adjust on the fly, because it's not just you're not just switching a school. It's probably going to result in 5 or 6 schools getting switched, maybe another weekend away from home, all those things. So if you know what you're stepping into, again, that's the best thing that they can do. The schools that do it really well, they try to line everything up for you. But there is the red herring with that I experienced it on the road where, hey, you come in here, 8 o'clock, we're doing this, 9 o'clock, we're doing this, 10 o'clock, it's, oh, wow, it's going to be wide open. And the feelings are good. Everybody's happy. Man, they even served us breakfast. And all of a sudden you get halfway through the visit and you look down, it's like, I've basically gotten nothing out of this, because again, they're just blowing a bunch of smoke, and they grease the skids for us. It's nice, we're comfortable, but also not getting any of that information, the good information, the deep information, not really able to get the sources. Because again, boom, 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 oh, nope, time to move on. Again, you're getting you're checking all your boxes, but you're not really getting that good information. So there were schools that did a really good job of that. And you're marking those. All right, I got to make my phone calls the next 3-4 nights on the road, or again, the next time I come back, I'm going to spend 2 days, and that second day I'm not going on that tour. I'm just, hey, can I just stay here, hang out, do whatever. Again, practice time. There are schools that again, everybody knows the school up north that only allowed you to come in on Mondays when it was a t-shirt and shorts workout. Now, it was not bad for body types, but again, you really couldn't see the way guys moved up close. And again, they were a really difficult visit to begin with. I don't know what it's like now.
Really made you blue back then. Is that right?
It did. Just
big blue.
It did. And again, that was again, I don't know what it's like this year. I would guess it's probably fairly similar.
The feedback that I'm getting is it is better. It is better.
It is better. That's good. And again, there's good people, and thankfully, I had coaches there that I actually worked with. That again, you can pick up the phone, and then again, what is always the challenge with those is being able to honestly, the football staff doesn't know that I called this department
Right.
or that I'm going over to that building to meet. And again, when you get some of those people and start to develop some of those relationships, that's when those visits are really valuable. Again, the best thing a school can do is just be wide open. Come in at any time. Monday. Don't come in Mondays. Mondays are cleanup day, but every other day of the week. Not Friday. Give us off before again. But those are usually your MAC schools, your off day schools. Again, they're wide open. Long answer to that, but again, there were the red herring school was what I kind of started calling was, again, you get in there. Indiana was really good. Mike Paycheck in there was really good. They opened everything up, but they ended up almost being a 3-visit school because you got a lot of warm fuzzies from them. And as you were digging, you were like, there's something's not adding up here. I feel really good leaving because I feel like I got all this information, but you look back and it's not really any thing that you really need to dig deep on. So I think about those. And again, one of the ones that I've read about, Iowa has really turned it around. With I'm going to draw a blank on his name there now. That he was there. Basically, I think he came in the spring last year. I had Iowa. That's really done a good job there to really turn it around. Because again, Iowa used to be one of the worst visits. As good a program as it was, as much as you liked those guys, especially as day 3 and UDFAs, it was really hard to like the players when you hated the strength coach or whatever coaching staff was keeping you locked in the tiny room or reading off the player bio or whatever it was. So again, you think about those again. Some of the Eastern Michigan used to be one of the best visits. Toledo, Ricky is down at Louisiana. I'm wondering if Louisiana Monroe has a similar visit now. Louisiana Lafayette. Well, he's in one of the Louisiana schools. Again, the schools come in, ask us whatever, be here all day. My phone's always on. Always outstanding schools for that. Temple's one of them that gets a lot of love. Used to be Western Kentucky. Used to be an outstanding visit. Ball State, Bowling Green. Again, you think about those smaller tier 2 schools that are just fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Okay, as we come to to nearly to the end of the hour, Rodrik, here's a question that I always have, and I think I'm not the only one, and only Scout can answer this. If a school has a top 5 player that everybody loves, and everybody knows he's going to be a premier pick, and you go and you talk to the counselor or the equipment guy or anyone like that, and they just trash the guy and talk about what a bad guy he is it really going to have any impact on how you think about the player, given what he's doing on the field?
It changes the way the player's talked about, without question. Again, I mean, a Caleb Williams, a Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going where they're going, regardless.
Right.
It may be Shadir Sanders this next year. It may be Travis Hunter this next year.
Right.
The player's the player. The player on the field is going to be the player on the field. It doesn't change the fact that if you're sitting there in the top 5, you're going to take him. What it does is it changes the conversation from what kind of player is he to what are we going to need to do for this player.
Important distinction. Okay.
So I think about it in relation to the Falcons taking Takaris McKinley out of UCLA, I believe, and he was a pick in the 20s. It was a need pick, and we all saw what happened on draft night. And it was never a question. The player had his strengths. The player had some weaknesses, but again, you're picking a rusher in the 20s, so again, you know what you're getting. The conversation with Tack was never about the type of player he was. We spent way more time talking about, can we do this for him? Are we going to be able to do this for them? That is where the conversation changes to where you have to, all right, what are we going to need for this player's entourage? What are we going to need to have in place? And again, then you have the conversation, okay, so with all these factors, can we still take the player at 3, at 4, at 5, knowing that we have to manage all the rest of this stuff? Is our player development person, is he going to be able to manage? Again, Is he going to be able to live in the city of Atlanta? Those types of questions. So again, that's when you start talking about the full package, and it's not about the player. The player is no question a top 5 pick, but again, you may pass on him because as a franchise, based on our situation, based on who's in the room, based on whatever it may be, we don't think we're going to be setting him up for success. You think about Zach Wilson in New York, and again, I'm guessing those were a lot of the situations, whether it was Woody Johnson, whether it was the GM, whatever it was. Again, the player's talented. You saw that in preseason. You know the player's talented. You saw it at BYU. You think about some of those big misses at the top. Again, I believe, was it Joey that – no, not Joey. With TJ that talked about our number 2 pick failing out, Ryan Leaf. Again, all the issues they knew about Ryan Leaf. And again, just the inability to set them up for success. That's how you, quote unquote, miss players, ruin careers, or they just go somewhere else and start thriving. It's just the way it was. Jalen Phillips, that's how he was at UCLA. He goes out to Miami, has a revelation, now in a great spot, still in Miami. So again, it's that I would say again, all goes back to that conversation just changing about those top players.
Sure, no doubt about it. Well, we'll continue to roll with that in the Friday wrap. It's become an important part, I think, of each week as far as talk about the visits. This week, Syracuse got a lot of plaudits for what they're doing up there. There are a couple other schools that haven't gotten so much positive feedback. You're just going to have to read the wrap to get that. If you're not already subscribed, it's free. Why not read it? It comes out on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and it's need-to-know information if you're in the football business, if you're in the game. So I encourage everyone out there to go out and register for it. You can find it on my Twitter at Inside the League.
So you've also got InsideLeague.com. You've got a subscription service, correct?
Yes, sir.
What
So too.
are people missing if they're not subscribing to Inside the League? What is people need to be doing it? If you're an agent, if you're an agent, if you're a scout, if you're aspiring, why do people need to be with Inside the League?
I think if you're a scout, there's a lot there. We try to measure the league and look at the trends and who's hiring and what you need to know. And we've talked about our Know Your Scouts feature, which just started this week, where we go into every front office, look at everyone who's there. We're expanding what we do with that. We're looking more at the analytics side as well. So I think if you're a scout, you need to kind of know that. You need to be abreast of the business and who's getting hired and who's advancing and all those kind of things. Same is true if you're an aspiring scout. It's an incredibly competitive environment out there. If you're trying to figure this thing out and how to get hired, I think it's important to know every scout story. I think you also need to know who's more likely to be hiring, who just hired scouting assistants, who let some go, who just moved up their scouts. Those are the places where you're more likely to have vacancies, and it's important to know who the people are that are going to be doing that hiring and kind of know a little bit about them. So I think if you're on the scouting side, it's a relevant thing. We also offer a discounted rate for aspiring scouts who aren't in the business yet, because we know you guys probably don't have 2 pennies to rub together, trying to be very mindful of how you spend money, and we're trying to help out with that. If you're an agent, if you just got certified, man, I'm telling you, we got stuff for you. We had 4 Zoom sessions that represent 7 hours of content, and I don't know how you can succeed in this business if you don't know all those things. And I think that's an important part of the industry. It's not free, but nothing that's good is free, right? And we talk about that in the wrap each week. If you aspire to be an agent, come on, come sign up with us. We'll set you up with the Next Wave rate as well. We want you to know about the players in the business, not just the ones between the lines, but the ones that are making decisions. You need to know about how the game works and all those kind of things. And if you're either one of those things, but you've got a little tighter budget, there's a lot of ways to get a sense of what we do. There's a succeedinfootball.com blog, which is weekly, where I kind of go to talk about the game. There's this podcast. You've already found it. Congratulations. We had the newsletter, which we talked about. There's a YouTube channel. And then, of course, the website, $29.95 a month. And not only do you get to read about everything, you get me. And anything that I can do to help you I will do. It's a consulting service. It's not an information service, although we do provide information. So 20 plus years doing this, we hope that we have helped people. That's what it's all about, right? It's a people business. And so everything we can do, we try to do when it comes to help people succeed in football. And so that's why we're here, and hopefully that's why we'll be here for another 20 years.
Yeah, no question. Well, we were getting started here, and Neil, I'm going to call you out now. You questioned whether we would be able to get an hour of content out of this, and here we are at 59 minutes and 31 seconds as my clock is counting, and I think we could go for another hour fairly easy. It's football, it's front office. Again, we didn't even talk about players, so people can't get enough of this. We can't get enough of it either. College, pro. We want to hear what you need more of, though. So let us know at Right Step ADV, at Inside the League. Give us your takes. What did you like? What do you not like? Again, who and what do you want to hear about from in the future as we continue to bring you the stuff that hopefully you want. Before we go, all you agents out there, make sure you check out Agent Live 360. The number one CRM designed specifically for sports agents, from contact and source management to expense tracking, a full contract section that's about to come out, and so much more. Agent Live 360 is the spot for you. Sign up for a demo. Yours truly will walk you through it all. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day trial at just $10 a month. Yes, $10 per month. That is agentlive360.com. Go sign up now. Man, halfway through October, doesn't seem real. About a month left on the schedule for most road scouts as we think about getting wrapped up right before Thanksgiving. Man, the weather, I don't know how it is there in Houston, but here in Atlanta, North Carolina, it really feels like fall, nice and crispy. It's exactly the way we want it feeling here as these October games roll along. Yet there's still plenty of football to go. We are just getting warmed up in the NFL season, the college season. Again, with 12-team playoff, anybody's still in this thing at this point. So enjoy the football. Take it all in. Watch all the games you can, but keep your priorities straight, and of course, keep scouting.
Keep scouting.